Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm Don Irvine, joined by Brian McNichol, my co-host somewhere in America. Where are you?
I'm Louisiana.
Louisiana.
And good morning, deplorables, drags, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, and our good friends, those dog-faced pony soldiers. There you are. I see you now.
There. Okay. Hi.
I was prepared
so,
to talk to
so
this black box for a solid hour, man.
yeah, that's always kind of interesting. So you're in Shreveport then?
I am. Where it is, like, been 80 degrees most of the time we've been here, 70 at night, beautiful weather. I'm going to hate to leave.
Yeah. It hasn't been all that bad back here, but it definitely can't compare to what you're seeing down there. That's for sure. Okay, so we'll see how my voice holds up here today. So we're coming up on New Year, and I want to talk about this a little bit because this is here we are we're going to be rolling into a new year, but right now, I mean, we're having this kind of this wave of Omicron, however you want to pronounce it, and the reaction to it has been very swift in terms of how people have been treating it. I think we talked about this a little bit before. I mean, initially when it hit, the long lines for people waiting to get tested, and you can't find a testing kit and things like this. One of the things that always gets me about this is just like, okay, wait, what are you doing? I mean, do you really need, unless you're feeling sick, do you need to line up and get a test? I mean, I know in Virginia, I mean, there was, they have those, I guess they have those aerial photos, the drones showing the long lines, at testing centers. And I'm sure this is replicated pretty much everywhere you go. But to me, this seems like a lot of overkill, for all of this. And then it's bled into the sports world too, where, we're in the midst of bowl season, but we're seeing bowls being canceled. And I guess what was it, the Holiday Bowl? Was that the one where UCLA pulled out at the last minute almost?
Right.
So this, I don't
NC
know.
State people were not happy about that. And I don't blame them. I mean, you go all the way to the West Coast to play these games, and that's a lot of money. And all of a sudden you're also I have a friend that works on the Holiday Bowl, and he's like, you can't imagine all the money that got lost there. All the people who sell stuff and merchandise and concessions, and they play that game now at Petco Park where the Padres play. They convert the baseball stadium, and so that's a lot of work. You had to change the turf and put all this turf down, and that was and it was 3 hours before the game that they canceled it. I mean, there were North Carolina State guys out warming up for the game when the word came that it would not be played. I think these schools overreacted. I think these people are overreacting. This is a minor variant. Not very many people are getting sick from it at all. Most people who have it don't even know they have it. And it's just, another excuse for monstrous overreaction being stirred by, fear mongers, people who get advantage from people being afraid of this. I don't know. One thing you said that this was going on everywhere. I'm not sure about that. I have seen the pictures of the long lines from Loudoun County, and I guess there was somewhere in Arlington yesterday that there were long lines. But I don't know that outside of the Acela corridor, haven't seen anybody worried about it here. No one's even thinking about it. It's a joke to people here when I talk to them about it that it's getting taken this seriously anywhere.
Yeah, so maybe cooler heads are prevailing in the South and other places, but where we have the more liberal areas, it's like, oh no, this is the end, the world is coming to an end again, type of thing like this. Look, for the last couple of days, I don't know what, I've had a couple of nights of fitful sleep and had a little bit of a fever and stuff like that. It's like, well, I kind of figure it's like, I get colds. Maybe this is just a worsening variant of that cold, right? It's a virus, and I just took it easy and laid low, and I'm getting better. But I didn't rush out to go find a test kit, which I probably wouldn't be able to find anyway, which is just insane. You know,
See, that's the other thing. If you test positive, then a bunch of restrictions come into your life, right? Um, yeah, Bob's right. You're standing in those lines. The other one I saw him, that is, if you can stand in those lines to get these tests that you don't need when you're completely well, guess what? You can stand in your line to vote. So we don't need mail-in votes. We don't need drop-off vote gatherers. We don't need ballot harvesting. You go stand in the line yourself. You were able to stand in the line when you were freaking out about the non-threat of Omicron. You can go stand in the line to do this.
yeah, I mean, this is just kind of the nutty scenario that we are now in, where every time plus I saw a report where the CDC, they went ahead and they corrected their initial estimate of Omicron for the week ending December 18th. When we were on before, they had come out and said it was 73% of the cases were that. They backed that down to like 22 and a half. It was up to like maybe 59 as of December 25th, but they realized it's like actually was Delta that was more was more prevalent than Omicron the previous week. But people are just they're getting all hyped up about this. We've seen this. I'm glad I don't fly during this time of year anyway. I think that's just kind of insane to be flying around the country.
Yeah, no way. I mean, people are like, you drove 1,200. Heck yeah, because I'm not about to get into that zoo. I mean, it probably took me less time to get here.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you tried to fly, I mean, there's just no telling. We the reverberations from staff shortages and some weather issues and things like that. It was another one of those snowball effects where people have been stranded all over the place and not being able to get where they needed to go because of a lot of the fear about this. And that is that that threshold is like, once again, the positive test, almost means it's like you've got like the Black Plague or something like that. And so, it's just kind of nuts how that goes, and everything like that. So it's just one of those things that I'm never quite sure what the heck is going on with all of that. Can you still hear me? Uh-oh. I'm going to take a water break because my throat is still dry. All right. So, problem with Brian being in Shreveport is that we may have a little bit of a spotty connection. But that's what I was saying. I mean, this whole thing has just been kind of crazy with what has been going on here with all of this Omicron variant and just the hypersensitivity on the part of all those that are out there. Brian was talking about the Holiday Bowl, and we saw NC State players. I mean, they were there. They were on the field. They were warming up, and then the game gets yanked out from underneath them. I mean, they're out there. Yeah, Bob. Yeah, thanks. Signal fading in Shreveport. I'm not going to sit here for the. Oh, here we come. I'm going to bring Brian back in. I hope. I'm not so sure, Bob, about the. All right, I'm not sure about the quality of the connection in Shreveport here, Brian.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you and see you.
Okay.
Bob commented that the signal was fading up in Shreveport.
It is. In more ways than one.
Yeah.
Shreveport's actually in some trouble. It's the population's fallen. It's one of the biggest losers in the population from the last census to this census in the whole country. It's down below 180,000 now. When I left here, it was about 210,000. It's now fallen behind Lafayette as the fourth biggest city in the state. Doesn't seem to be a lot of things people can do for jobs here. The casinos, economic impact of the casinos has kind of been blunted at this point. I mean, they're a steady employer and no one wants to tear them down, but, even some of the casinos have not worked out. So, Shreveport's kind of trying to find an identity. There's a feeling that there's a lot of corruption here. There's a feeling that it's kind of helpless against violent crime. They have almost 100 murders in Shreveport. 100. You think about, DC is about right at 200 murders, which is a bad year for DC. Right? It had been in the mid 100s in the last few years. It's gone up this year, the last couple of years for various reasons. But DC is like 700,000, 600 to 700,000 people, right? And that's not what, this is 1/6, 1/5 of that, 1/4 of that. So, for them to have half as many homicides is shows that they're having trouble.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. It was interesting that we went ahead and got onto that just briefly because actually Spencer sent me a little thing about the latest census data, and he was kind of wondering because he had seen that about Louisiana Shreveport in particular. I don't know. I mean, I think COVID has altered a lot of things. It's interesting that there are places that are still losing population that could, I guess, potentially. I mean, Shreveport better than I do, obviously by far. But I mean, is Shreveport an area that could attract people where they could work from home, but where the head office is 100 miles away or whatever?
Like the West Virginia formula. There's some of that. It's pretty good broadband. I'm not on it here, obviously. But they're pretty good. They're also building a big Amazon, package handling center. Shreveport is at the corner of I-20, which runs across the south, Dallas to Shreveport, Monroe, Jackson, Birmingham, Atlanta, Savannah, I guess is where it is. And I-49, which goes down to Baton Rouge, New Orleans. So connects you from I-20 to I-10. So you can get anywhere on the eastern half of the country from here. If you're bringing goods from the west or, sending goods out west. So hopefully that will mean some jobs to them. A lot of people are complaining that the jobs aren't that high paying, but, they're jobs. They're more than what a lot of those guys have now. But the news is not all bad. There's more of a black middle class here. I was in on that side of town day before yesterday, and took a drive, went to see some friends, and it was a lot of stuff. It was ghetto before has been knocked down and rebuilt. A lot of it has been gentrified, and most of it is black neighborhoods that stayed black. So that means those people are gaining economically, which, given the history of Shreveport is, that's really good news.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I mean, the thing too is that, with Amazon, they are a company that everybody loves to hate because they say, oh, these are tough, these are low paying jobs, and they're really rigid, in terms of how much they monitor the employees and things like that. But they do bring jobs, period. Yeah. And it expands the tax base. These are things that wind up good. I mean, I think there are towns out there that would die, to have these Amazon facilities and things like that. I mean,
Shreveport was a lot. At one time, you had a General Electric plant, a General Motors plant, and an AT&T plant here. So you had a lot of people who didn't necessarily have college degrees that were making decent salaries. And that made a lot of difference in what else you could do as a town, which you could have in the way of restaurants and entertainment and quality of life stuff. When you have a lot of people with some walking around money, it changes the dynamic of the town, makes it a lot healthier.
Yeah. And the jobs, I mean, now with the way, as we have talked about before too, in terms of, the inflationary, period that we're in right now, and we're seeing jobs, we're seeing salaries, the minimum wage type of thing like this, starting wages at these companies, they are moving up faster than anybody really expected them to, but that's being pushed on by all this inflation. So now, an Amazon job that might have been $15 5 years ago is probably $18 to $21 by now, I think, and they continue to move up. Costco, is doing that. They're all these companies, they're in an effort to attract people, they're doing that. They're trying to raise the wages to get enough employees in the door to keep their businesses running, which has been
right. Well, but we were talking about this yesterday. There's a wall to that, right? Because you can be charitable all you want with salaries, but at the end of the day, the productivity has to match the salary, right, or come close to it, right? And you can have a little slack in that line occasionally, but you know, box checkers and burger flippers and all that, you know, you can hire anybody to do that. Those are not jobs where you're doing a lot to improve productivity. So, you know, if the productivity of those jobs does not move substantially, then those salaries cannot be justified. And at some point, you're going to get static in the line again because they're being artificially forced up because employers are competing with the government for workers.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean,
people stay home and do nothing.
Right. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think we are reaching a tipping point here in terms of where, you know, and they look, most of these employers, I mean, I don't consider Amazon like a benevolent company. I mean, they work their employees pretty hard, and they have a lot of restrictions on what they can and cannot do. So, Amazon's not doing it out of charitable aspect or trying to be benevolent to their employees. They're building a business, they're running a business, they're trying to make money, et cetera, et cetera. But there is a point in time where you're like,
it's a huge business with a lot of logistics and a really small profit margin. So, I mean, they really can't mess with the margin a whole lot, or, this big enterprise that, now we're in the point where hundreds of thousands of people are dependent on it for their living, goes under,
Right. And look, I mean,
Amazon, the company itself starts being too big to fail.
Right. I mean, look, Amazon is not necessarily the cheapest place to buy stuff from all the time, but it is probably one of the most convenient because of the logistics, because of what they have built. They've been building their own infrastructure in the sense of moving the products. They rely less on third-party services to deliver their goods. They built a fleet of delivery vans and things like that. I think they're still mostly independent contractors or things like that. They keep them off the payroll so they don't have that extra layer of expense. But nevertheless, they have built this system. And the thing is that what we know Amazon for, that is not their most profitable item. It is their cloud services. Their cloud services are what drives the engine of Amazon. The selling you a CD, well, nobody buys a CD, but selling you any good of groceries or whatever on there, relatively low margin for them, but on the cloud services side, their Amazon Web Services, that is exploding. That's where our business is. And so that funds a lot of other things that they can do. Also helps get Jeff Bezos into space, and everything like that. Right. So but we are at that point because I think any average person who's got, half a brain here got to realize is that, how much can a McDonald's franchise pay a person to run the cash register, to flip a burger, turn over the fries, handle the orders before it gets too expensive? It just, how much more will the cost of the burgers go? They're already facing cost pressures on the ingredient side, right? They have a hard time getting that stuff. The stuff they do get costs more when they can get it. And so, we've seen, we had that period where we had those, dollar menus, which a lot of franchises hated that corporate put onto them. And, it's adjusted over time to various things where just the cheapest of the cheap items where they might be able to eke out a penny or two profit, or at least it becomes a small loss leader is there. But a lot of those things have disappeared because it's just too expensive. You can't make any money doing it that way. Right. So it's really tough. Some places are just going to concentrate on, carry out business for the time being because, we're still going through a lot of bumps, with COVID and the reaction to COVID. I still haven't, I've been meaning to go over to this restaurant over in Rockville that we've been going to for over 40 years to see if they ever reopen their dining room because, we get a carry out there every once in a while. And every time I go over there, it's like, they still haven't reopened their dining room, which maybe they don't like the vagaries of what goes on in Montgomery County. But the other side of it is that they probably can do okay running the restaurant that way. And then if you laid off your staff during COVID,
staff,
how do you get
no forward, outward facing people? You just take orders and cook and put it in a bag.
Yeah. So it's just, the nature of where we are is just kind of crazy with all of those things going on. But I mean, the other thing I wanted before we move on too was just that, when when we were talking earlier about the bowl games. So we've seen several bowl games being canceled. Talked about the Holiday Bowl, but it's also, the New Year's Eve events, the outdoor events. Times Square, limited to what is it, like 15,000 people. They have to wear a mask. They have to be vaccinated and things like this. I'm like, but you're outdoors. I mean, okay, so you're crowded together, and stuff like that. But it doesn't make any. All these outdoor events, and I'm seeing these local events around. You see Maryland, Virginia, the same thing. It's like you're outdoors. What is the problem here? Oh no. Hey Bob, we need to do something about Brian's connection in Shreveport. He's going to have to work on that next time he goes down there. This is not. Looks like I'm going to have to once again go through. Oh, well, he's coming back awfully quick. Okay, this time he's coming back quicker. All right, they're just coming and going.
It got me again.
We'll have to investigate the. Maybe that's one of the problems. We need to upgrade the quality of the internet in Shreveport here. Is that part of Biden's infrastructure program? Will Shreveport get some money for that? I hope.
It probably will. It's a Democrat mayor and a Democrat governor. So, and cities that went for Biden. The Caddo Parish was pretty strong for Biden. So,
yeah. Okay. Well, see, it's the perfect area for that. What is he saying?
They're getting exactly what they deserve to for it.
So Bob is saying rough situation up there. Hope it's not for experimentation breaks.
No. Yeah. Experimentation goes on. The research continues.
But I mean, does it make any sense to cancel these outdoor events because of this? I mean, I understand on the one hand all these protocols, for the sports teams and everything like this. Though I think they're really I think
that I don't know what they do, but I think that it's time to recognize that, people are not going to die of this. Almost no one dies of this, especially people, college age athletes, right? I don't think it really matters that 4 or 5 or 6 of them have it. I don't think it means the whole team can't play, right? And I don't even know if it means that those people can't play. Not everybody who has it spreads it. In fact, most people who have it don't spread it to anyone. We're not all super spreaders. Only a few of us are.
Right.
And you don't know which ones they are. You have to kind of treat it like everybody is. But the fact of the business is, so what if they play with COVID? Because the guy across from them, he's the only one who's going to come close to being in any danger, right? The games are outdoors, big old, stadiums and so forth. The air disperses. You're not, in some.
Is this another dropout? Boy, I tell you, this has been a rough morning in Shreveport. Somebody's got to say it. All right, now we have to see how long it'll take before Brian pops back in again. How many is that? Will this be number 4 when he comes back in or something like that? But yeah, look, as we were talking here, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You have these big events. You've got healthy players for the most part. They almost a completely vaccinated group of players. A lot of them have been boosted on top of that, and yet, what do you have? You have these officials, not necessarily all government officials when it comes to the schools, right? You have the school officials saying, here are the protocols, or the NCAA saying, here are the protocols for these things, and yet it doesn't really have any basis, in terms of exactly where is the science on this that shows that this is really going to stop anything. They were able to play basically the entire college football season without having any major, issues along the way. We get to the bowl season, and because once we're getting down to the winter months where things are more enclosed. Yeah, guess what? What also happens at this time of the year? The flu, colds, other things like this. Viruses are very prevalent, at this time of the year. What's this? Is this number 3 or number 4 we've been bringing it back on?
It's been. I didn't bring my little thing for the tick marks. So,
yeah.
There's been a few of them though. But yeah, we were talking about the virus and And I was saying, I'm not sure why that, this remains the protocol, and all these people are like, well, the safety of our athletes comes first. Well, I'm not sure the safety of the athletes is compromised by letting them play football. They're not sick. The people across from them are not sick. They're not going to get sick, and so I don't really understand why it has to be done that.
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to say that a player with the flu was probably worse off than somebody with Omicron or something like this at this point in time. I mean, those if you have the flu, chances are you're they'll get fairly sick. Some of them can get you'll feel it a lot more than you will feel it with COVID. And I just don't know that, at least now what about the CDC? So they've cut in half the quarantine period, which apparently has upset the airline employees and things like that. But I don't see why they needed a 10-day at this point anyway. I mean, so five seems fine. The lower the better.
Well, I mean, what that is though is a tacit admission that this is not about science, right? It's
Exactly.
like the 6 feet apart. You know how they got that? They thought it would be dangerous within 3 feet, and they didn't think people could measure 3 feet accurately. So they said, "Oh, we'll just make it 6." I mean, that's the kind of decision making that has gone into this whole thing. And so, yeah, I think it's the same thing here. It's just like, okay, well, if it'll get us more flight attendants, then COVID will die after 5 days, right? Well, COVID dies. Your ability to infect others is like from 2 or 3 days before you get symptoms to a day or two after. So once you're in that 5th day, you can't give it to anyone else. It's unbelievable.
So I think what Bob says here is
Jerry Ratcliffe. So he's talking about the UVA was knocked out of its ball game. Was supposed to play in the Fenway Bowl, the first Fenway Bowl ever up in Boston, and they just withdrew because an administrator decided they had too many cases and didn't have enough eligible people. And so these guys have been working on this for 3 weeks, and they've been practicing all year, and the teams, their fans bought tickets to Boston and flew up there and all this stuff, and like, no game, just whoop, gone, out of the old ever popular abundance of caution. But they're not thinking about like the downstream effects of this, and the immediate effects of it are negligible. I mean,
I think we're going to limp through this program. This is great. Anyway, Bob, you're right though. I mean, this is the thing is that they have to, what this Ratcliffe guy was saying is just that it's true. I mean, they have to be pragmatic, and this is one of the things that we're not getting on this at all, right? Is that there is no pragmatism on this. All right, here we go. I should just time you.
So what did I miss? What did you say?
No, I was just saying. The only thing I said was that I think it's right. I mean, I think it is time for pragmatism, and we're not getting it. And you were just mentioning too about the lack of science. I mean, didn't Aaron Rodgers just talk about something about it's not science, it's propaganda or something like that. He made some statement,
right?
And Rodgers is pretty outspoken on these things, but I think what he says is gaining more credibility because, as you have said, when the CDC backtracks on this, they go back to this, says, right, this is no longer science. And we're seeing more evidence, I think, as they try to do things. And where's the science? I mean, even Fauci with this, he wants to keep the mask going on airplanes. But where's the science on this? I mean, at this point, it's still, if Fauci stays in charge, he has influence, he wants this thing to be in effect basically forever. But the airlines, we know from everything that is some of the best air you can breathe, period. So wearing a mask on a plane is really redundant at this point. Right. The staff is always going to be the staff probably always wear a mask now for the time, at least for the time being. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But there is no pragmatism. There's no common sense anymore with this.
Right. Like you had the one. I guess you saw the Burger King in New York City some 8-year-old kid got hauled out of there by the cops because he didn't have his mask on. He didn't have his vax papers. Okay, so I mean, it's the things that we're allowing ourselves to do to each other. We're saying, society is saying it's okay to just abuse people and abrogate their rights and do whatever you want to them, in the name of achieving their compliance with your demands for their COVID policy, right? When in fact, there's now no reason. What is the reason at this point? If you have not taken a vaccine, what is the reason to take one, right? It doesn't stop you from giving it. It doesn't stop you from getting it. It doesn't make it less severe. That lie has kind of been exposed in the last few weeks, right? Because, especially with Omicron, it's not really serious for anyone. So you haven't really cut down anything. So, you're taking a lot of chances for what I can't determine to be any benefit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. For a minute there, I wasn't sure I was keeping you or losing you.
No.
But yeah, but that's right. I mean, there's a lot of good things in there. Yeah, look, I mean, I haven't arranged to get my booster, but I will eventually get off my duff and go get it anyway. But I'm not in any big hurry at this point in time. I'm not overly worried about these things. I'm not immunocompromised, and neither is my wife, and things like that. So, I feel I'm in pretty good shape. But yeah, I mean, look, there are cases of, obviously, where people are vaccinated, and have been boosted, and they've been tested positive. So, then once again, it goes back, individual choice. Let the people decide, yourself decide whether or not you want to get it or don't want to get it. And people, I mean, Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz or anybody else, Kyrie Irving, not that I'm a fan of Kyrie Irving by any stretch of the imagination. If they don't want to get vaxxed, that's their decision, and, and chances are that very little will happen as a result of this. I mean, so Wentz now, I guess he may miss the next game because he's got to go into the, NFL's protocol, but that protocol still is questionable based on how much it's decimated teams this year, and really, I think, distorted a lot of the ways things have gone. I mean, you go out and you lose 20 players to COVID protocols, and then they come back, exactly healthy and everything. I thought it's like, so exactly what did we do when we basically sent them to purgatory for 10 days or whatever? It doesn't make any sense to me. And
right. I thought the NBA has already used more players this year than it's ever used in a season before, and it is December 29th.
Right. Yeah.
We're just getting into the thick of it.
Yeah, they've been pulling players from the G League and all kinds of things to do this. It's just kind of, I
when you have
go ahead.
You have football, like I think the Seattle Seahawks played a game last week where 28 of the 53 people on their roster had been on the roster 2 weeks or less. Now, I mean, you can dump on the coach and get mad at the talk shows or whatever, but how are you supposed to win like that? How are you supposed to have any continuity? Football's a thing where it's elaborate planning and timing and all that stuff that has to go into it, and it all has to happen then very quickly. And you don't have any connection to these people, you're just making this stuff up. Like, I don't know if you saw any of the Saints game the other night, right? Well, the Saints used a 4th string quarterback, a guy that wasn't even active most of the season. So basically 3/4 of their playbook could not be used because, this guy doesn't know how to run that stuff. So they were very limited. They're dealing with receivers who were not, worthy of being in the, league, 8th, 9th string receivers that had been cut 3 or 4 times, right? Everybody in the league had agreed, close but no cigar. And yet those people are, starting and playing full games for the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't score. Of course, they did. The game was horrible to watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is a disservice to the fans. I mean, they pay good money to go to these games, and you're not seeing the players.
Right.
You basically were paying to see. I mean, you know, when
Right.
you
No one
when you
paid to see Ian Book play Monday night. I promise you that.
I didn't even realize
Not
that
even
Ian
Ian
Book
Book's
was still in the
mom.
mix anywhere. You know, I mean,
No.
it does. I mean, yeah, it smacks a little bit of, you know, when we had the strikes and you start bringing in these replacement players and things like that. Um, but this is not what we're expecting about this. And for teams to be able to have to go to a quarterback who's never really read the playbook or knows very little about the playbook, and you got to just stick with your basic plays. I mean, that's really bad. All right, so this is interesting. Now I've got you on here twice. How do I do that?
Twice. Yeah, maybe one will stay. There we go.
There we go. I can
Um,
remove that one. I don't. That was weird. Oh, I can. Oh, I see. I
so,
can take that. Okay.
but
Go ahead.
the thing you were talking about earlier, the bowls. College football is going to have to think about what they're doing here because, like LSU, they have 90 people on scholarship, right? And 51 are available for our bowl game. Right? We don't really know who's going to play quarterback because we have one quarterback. We use him. He loses his red shirt. We had a quarterback. Our starting quarterback most of the year has gone into the portal. We have another quarterback who hasn't played for 2 years because of injuries, and maybe he's ready. So if you bought tickets to the Texas Bowl, if you saved your shekels and got you a hotel in Houston, and you want to watch this great game, it could well be quarterbacked by a walk-on. A major college football team, a Power 5 conference football team, could very well play its ball game with a walk-on quarterback, right? And the team doesn't really look like, what you've seen. And it's not just us, and it's not just because of COVID, right? You have all these guys opting out because of the pros and their draft status and all this stuff. They need to figure out a way to incentivize this to get the people to play the game, right? It's just one last game and it doesn't really matter, but you don't, what you're selling is not what people are thinking they're buying, right? They think they're buying a full look at your team, but they're not. They're buying, the 51 guys out of the 90 who bothered to show up.
Yeah, I mean, do you have, just out of curiosity then, do you have any issue with players who are likely to go pro that decide to sit out a bowl game that has no bearing whatsoever on the standings? I mean, in terms of their rankings or anything like this, to sit out rather than risk an injury, so they can just prepare for that. Do you have any issues with that?
Well, I see why they do it. And there are some people who win out of that arrangement. For instance, those 51 guys at LSU are all going to get to play, right? They're all going to have a heightened role in this game because we don't have anyone else. But what I'm saying is there needs to be some way to incentivize them to stay, to play that game, because what you're selling to the bowl is our team, including these guys who won all these games here, right? And what you're giving them is 51 guys who haven't played much, who don't have an excuse to opt out, basically.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the economic ramifications of all this. I mean, it changes the face of the bowls. I mean, even those people that are running the bowls have got to begin to think about what are the economics going forward with all these things swirling about. But boy, I mean, if you're a fan, as Brian was alluding to earlier, and you had booked your flight and the hotel and everything like that to San Diego for the Holiday Bowl, and then you come up and find out hours before the game that the game has basically been yanked, then what do you do? So you're just kind of, it's funny how you're just fading in and out like this. I don't know, but I mean, what I'm saying here now is that the economic ramifications of when you mentioned just some of the things about the fans, I'm going back to that Holiday Bowl. I'm just thinking like people who booked a ticket from North Carolina to San Diego to go watch that game. They had hotels and all this. They have all these expenses, and then they don't get to watch their team play at all, and they're going to head home. I mean, that's a hit to them that they will not, that's a loss to the fans. But it also is damaging to the bowl's reputation, I think, when this happens, and it doesn't help the NCAA either when they start seeing this, because it just makes me wonder. It's like, so we've got 30 odd bowls or whatever the number of bowls is. How many bowls will actually be played, and who's going to be playing in them? And then if somebody pulls out and then another team gets substituted in, and this becomes like, I don't know. The whole thing is kind of crazy, because they're bowing down to Dr. Fauci, the CDC, and phony science, if you can even call it science at this point.
Right.
So
and it's ladled over with university, academia, political correctness. We always put the safety and health of the athletes first, except when you don't, right?
Yeah.
But, in this case, it's like, hey, we get to deny these guys a game. We get to stop this. We get to put our foot down. And I mean, that is what they're in love with here. And that's like, we've talked about this a bunch over the years, and you're really seeing it now. These people do not want to let go of these restrictions. They've got people, they're going around telling everybody what to do, and they have an excuse, and it's kind of hard to go against them right now. And they can use the power of government in some cases, such as, New York, rousting the poor 8-year-old kid eating his Burger King, right? They're not going to give that up. We're going to have to take that from them. We're going to have to ignore their rules and defy their enforcement and take this into our own hands, because they're not going to let up. They're not programmed to say, okay, the COVID problem was solved, we're moving on. They're not going to do it. So it's going to have to be done unto them. And I fear that not much of this is going to happen unless there's an election.
Yeah. So,
I think you can see Biden, he senses, I think that someone has explained to them that this is killing them politically, that people are sick of this, that there's no support anymore for these lockdowns, that, it's got to be a 75-25 issue at this point. And, they have not figured out how to get off this horse. Right. And so you can see, like Biden said, it's got to be solved at the state level. Yesterday, told the governors, which is, been true all along. It's just an acknowledgement of the facts, right? But he has tried to have these big, I will cure the virus. I will end the virus. I will not shut down the economy. I will not shut down the country. I will shut down the virus. Well, what has he done? Shut down the economy, shut down the country, but not shut down the virus. So, they don't know what they're doing, and everybody is now kind of coming around to that conclusion. Jennifer Rubin, same thing. Well, we now know that it's not all that dangerous. Really? Well, a lot of us have done that a long time, Jennifer. A lot of us could work basic math and did not see political advantage in, taking people's freedom away and forcing them to do things that they clearly didn't want to do or did not need to do.
Yeah, and on Biden, I mean, the idea. I mean, when he comes out and he says, there's no federal cure. I mean, for the virus. I mean, the government, and things like this. It's like, but didn't you say? And I think didn't you say that you were going to take care of this, right? And I mean, and this was going to definitely be a down thing. That this was the thing that you were going to do, and you had blamed and spent a lot of time blaming Trump in the past, right? The Democrats and the media dumped all over Trump on COVID-19 before, and now they're saying, oh no, it's all well and fine, it's nothing, no big deal about this at all. And once again, just as we get towards the end of the show, will Brian come back? Okay, let me see if I can bring him back. All right, well, anyway, let's do this before you fade away again. Let's go to 2 minutes.
Let's see what was on our list here. There was a couple of ones on there. Give me just a second, because we did get mentioned that. Okay, so yeah, a couple. For one thing, I'll race through some of what you have left. Fauci, we're not going to wear masks forever on planes. It's already causing. Planes are going to get tired of breaking up the fights, right? It's a brawl every day on a plane somewhere, and people are tired of their flight attendants being in the middle of that. John Madden died. Really one of the great ambassadors for football, for all of sports. A guy, he's kind of like, and people may not appreciate this comparison, but he's kind of like Dick Vitale in that, what he really communicates to you is how much he loves the game, and how lovable the game is. He added love to the world. And those kind of people, I always, I have a lot of respect for them, no matter what. If they're for my team or for the other team or whatever, it's fine. It's like, Vin Scully, he loved baseball. He loved talking baseball. So still does. Even if you're not a Dodger fan, you can say, okay, just listen to this guy do what he does, and the great love and skill he applies to it is worth seeing. Madden was also a pretty darn good coach. He was fastest to 100 wins in NFL history, and I believe that still stands. Also, Harry Reid died, the former majority leader of the Senate from Nevada.
No. No, I got to let Brian have a last word in here, right? All right, here we go.
Let's go. There I am again. So, Harry Reid broke the filibuster for judicial nominees to clear the 60 vote threshold. And, Democrats have been hurt by that decision ever since. He always struck me as an unnecessarily mean, vituperative, secretive, underhanded. He lied about Mitt Romney's taxes, and he never took it back. He's like, hey, it made him lose. It doesn't matter that it wasn't true, right? And, just a despicable figure in American politics.
Well, so much for not dancing on somebody's grave, but
you got to tell the truth.
You're going to tell it like it is. I just want to say one thing in terms of Madden. I mean, I believe he has the highest winning percentage of an NFL coach with more than 100 games. It's like 75.9%. Tremendous record. I mean, absolutely. And he was such a joy to watch on as his commentator during the football games. Just a brilliant guy, and I think you're right. He's very lovable, and he had lovable for the game. I mean, I think you pointed out. I mean, Dick Vitale, Vin Scully. I mean, these are the guys that that we have heard, listened to, seen on television, listen to radio, whatever, over the years, and we say these people love the sport, and they are great for the sport, and that is really quite a thing for them. And Madden and his. And all the
put turducken on the map too. No one ate turducken until John Madden. No one dared venture forth.
And he probably didn't hurt bus travel along the way either. Having the Madden bus. All right, I got to bring Brian back so I can just wrap up and say goodbye here at the least. But for Harry Reid, okay, look, I'm not going to be dancing on Harry's grave here, so let's see if we can do this.
It's tough out here, man.
All right. That's why we're doing a quick wrap up. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us today. It was a great show. Brian was fading in and out, but we just held it together because we are professionals. We know what we're doing. We're not going to let technical glitches along the way take us down.
Just ask us.
That's right. Anyway, please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. God bless America. Happy New Year. Enjoy the rest of your holidays, everyone. We will see you again in the new year, and Brian should be back in Wisconsin, Virginia by then, I assume.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Well, have a good one, everyone. We'll see you again next week. Happy New Year.
All right.